question that I want to suggest is, can we break from following how social injustices are reproduced in designing our organization? I mean, it was somewhat addressed in relation to the class, race, and gender divide, but also in more strategic way. And perhaps the main question that I want to suggest for the discussion in the groups is what, and it builds up to the discussion that we had here. Have I got sense? Sorry. Is what forms of organization correspond to which strands of our agenda and how these different forms come together. And I would say that, I mean, it's pretty clear that we shouldn't, I mean, when discussing who is the agency and what is the organization, we must apply, I mean, we must take into account all forms of organizing and not limit ourselves to the one thing that we might find most productive. And to give some of the background I come from and what might be relevant for the discussion, I'm part of various groups in Belgrade that struggle with the city development issues. And we are not that many people and as many entities we are. We early on realized that actually producing multiple entities for the different causes helps us both strategically, in the sense that we could at the same time do the advocacy work and also occupy some spaces, have massive protests against mayor. And discuss on the national level the access to spaces that are not used. But it also helped us to practice different forms of organization, and I think that's been very fruitful in the sense that there are types of organization that are more inclusive and more empowering, whereas there are those who are more operational. And that we should, in discussing the organizing, have this in mind. And just when thinking about the urgency of organizing, I think it's always good to imagine the other side, and there is a tendency here that it is referred as a neoliberalism or at the right, whereas it's probably the group of people sitting in the wine estate next door. Thinking of where to privatize or do extractivism, and deciding on very simple criteria of where do they get money, where is the profit the biggest, or which struggle needs to be crashed. And to conclude, I would just to expand on the question that I think should be discussed in the group. Is that having in mind and going back on our experiences in unions, movements, parties, community groups, is what would be the new politics of organizing on the workplace, in communities, in university, in attempt to seize the political power, and what is for economical power. How we organize in opposing and how we building alternatives. Thank you.
I think Marco has raised several important issues about agency, organization, and the synergies and convergence that we will take up in the groups. I invite Song, to you have your 8 minutes.
If you hear it ding, it's my 8 minutes is over, so I like to stick to time if possible. Thanks, comrades. My name is Sean Sweeney. I'm here from New York representing trade unions for energy democracy. I've sort of developed a few thoughts which sort of converge into a proposal or an idea for future research that might be appropriate to be picked up in the new politics space. And this comes from really quite a lot of years of activism and research and convening meetings around the international labour space. So the sort of title I'm working with is there is still a world to win in terms of trade union organisations at a global level. My comments are mostly aimed at global trade union bodies, not at all unions everywhere around the world. That would be far too broad and ambitious. But first of all, the key problems, and they're fairly obvious. As a force for economic justice and socialist transformation, the global trade union movement has declined in many places dramatically. Changes at the level of the political economy, ideological disorientation, cultural shifts, all of this has seriously weakened the global labour movement as a force. I don't think that requires too much by way of elaboration. In the 80s and 90s, it appeared that trade union was moving to the south from the north. So nothing to worry about. Industry was moving to the south. And so you saw really mass union-centered struggles in South Africa, in Brazil, in South Korea, and one or two other very significant countries of the global south, to some extent in Mexico as well. Meanwhile, unionism in Europe remained solid. Some union densities were 80-90% in the Nordic countries, and still remain quite high even today. And that produced south-north tensions within the global labour movement between what, in shorthand, we can call social movement, transformative unionism in the south, and sort of that social partnership, class collaboration model in Europe in particular, but also across the global north and the developed north. Now what we can say is today, unionism in both the south and the north is in retreat and decline. The decline is revealed in falling union density, that's the percentage of workers in the union, and the sort of also the collapse and shift to the right of social democratic parties or workers' parties, including what were once communist parties. Good example, PCI in Italy had 800,000 members. When it collapsed, all of those members pretty much disappeared and never reorganized themselves. It's a middle-aged and old-age generation of membership. Last thing on the problems, there's a discussion, particularly in the US, this may not be typical elsewhere, of what they call alt-labor. This is the sort of the new form of organizing, which goes outside of traditional collective bargaining, domestic workers, some other types of workers, taxi drivers, and new models of workplace organizing are emerging, but it doesn't constitute an alternative model. If anything, it's an NGO model that relies on advocacy and mostly support from outside funders, including foundations and private citizens. So it's not self-sustaining from the members for the most part. Now, in terms of what we are asked to produce here as provocateurs, issues that demand deeper consideration. I would say there's two conclusions we can draw. What should the orientation of the world left and social movements be towards international trade unionism? And the possible conclusions are essentially, or two of the main conclusions are, the decline is terminal, and that we shouldn't expect much from unions from now on. Their historical period is coming to a close. Others might say, and have argued, that the decline is temporary. It takes unions time to catch up with changes in the political economy and in different production systems. And just as the skilled trades built around the traditional crafts took decades to respond, and in many ways didn't respond to industrialization, industrial unions came in, and it led to an explosion in union organizing from the 1890s to the 1950s and even beyond. And there was public sector organizing which exploded internationally. So we don't know the answer. This is the point, whether there's going to be a long-term decline or whether there's going to be some kind of resurgence. But in terms of how we deal with this in the here and now, in the context of this discussion on politics of crisis, it cries out, I believe, for a political struggle for control of the existing institutions of trade unionism. Why? First of all, although they're in decline, unions are probably still the primary organizations of a significant section of the working class globally, not just the white working class, not just the male working class, and not just the working class of the privileged countries. 188 million workers are affiliated to the International Trade Union Confederation, and on top of that, there are tens of millions who are not affiliated at all in unions small and large around the world. There are global union federations, some of them have several million members, one has 32 million members, which is the Education International, Public Services International has 13 million members. So there's a lot of resources and institutional weight tied up in these bodies. Their effectiveness in the workplace today is mostly defensive. One or two sectors are exceptions, such as healthcare, because healthcare is growing around the world, and health unions have a market strength that that other unions do not have, or a declining strength. And their effectiveness in politics is potentially very, very important in the way that they can reach members of the working class, educate and mobilize using these resources. Organizationally, unions have resources that many social movements can only dream about: buildings, pension funds, staff, skills, access to elected leaders, tens of millions of members who pay into unions. But consolidation and mergers, global union federations have merged. In the US, unions also put $119 million of union money into the Clinton campaign, and those are the contributions that they have. There's lots of in-kind contributions that come from that. So I think we should see these resources as belonging to the working class. They come from the accumulated sacrifices of past generations of activists. They are union dues that come from the pockets of workers, and it is essential to struggle for these resources and to use them in the service of building a global movement. If I think of the experience of trade unions for energy democracy over the last 4.5 years, we've probably raised from unions and from other funders, I'm guessing about $2 million in 4.5 years, which is a pretty small amount of money. But we've gotten this unions comment that there's more productivity, more flexibility, more discussion, it's facilitating policy development and organizing in a way these big global bodies are completely. Speaking to staff and leaders of global union federations, they say a lot of the staff time is raising affiliation fees from unions in order to pay the staff who are raising the affiliation fees. So the actual value added of a lot of these union bodies is questionable. Now, so what's the proposal? The networks are like TUED, Trade Unions for Energy Democracy, no substitute for struggle around the formal structures. And I believe, I'll just continue for one more minute, that's okay. The international structures are crying out to be reshaped or actively rivaled because of the rapidly changing context. Some left people in those structures would actually welcome this. They don't want to be the last person in the building to shut the door and say goodbye to organizations. Some of them have been around for over 100 or 150 years. So they actually would participate. What I believe is a careful review, an independent mapping of the resources of how these bodies can be changed and alter their practices in a way that can make them more effective in the context of the changes in the workplace and the changes in politics. What would the methodology be for such a project? I don't believe it would come from the inside. Not one single union body, union federation is going to say to the other, oh, by the way, I think we're in danger of being extinct. Shall we have a little commission and make some proposals? But I think if they were approached externally and had some individuals were approached in terms of how do we have an independent review of proposals on how these resources can be used more effectively, how we can enhance the effectiveness of those resources, then I think there is a strong possibility, if nothing else, the proposals would open up a discussion which is long overdue. Because the alternative is they will sink along with the rest of the trade union movement, and I think there are many people in the movement, even in the official strata, who don't want to see that happen and who would participate in such a review. So just a thought in terms of future research and discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saul, for being very concise and dealing with deep issues, very interesting issues for the union movement at global level and some resources, because Labour has been one of the main component and agency of change that we consider an agency of change. So the last speaker will be Peter, who said he will be inputting on what we've already been saying on convergence, etc., and pushing it forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Peter Frakes. Thanks for listening. Sorry, brain's a bit fried. Hopefully this will make sense. So this panel posed a bit of trouble for me, and I've been struggling all this time figuring out what I would say. I mean, I'm not really as expert or as experienced in questions of organization as many of the people in this room. I'm primarily here representing a Left Media project, which has some organizing component, but it's not primarily one, nor is it geographically specific, although you could argue, given the distribution of our subscribers and our reading groups and our events, that it's really an urban political project, which is sort of interesting, but not what I'm going to talk about. So, Sean already covered sort of the labor piece very well, and I know I have nothing to say about rural organizing, unfortunately. So I am going to, again, I was encouraged to talk about the organization and agency component of this. I mean, I will say it's really unfortunate given I come from a predominantly urban and suburban country, but there are many people here who do not. It's unfortunate we didn't have someone who could speak to those issues on this panel. But so it goes. As was mentioned, I realized as I was putting together my comments as we went into the previous session, that Pierre's discussion of the convergence of movements really overlapped a lot with what I was going to say. In that discussion, there was also there was a desire expressed, I think, to maybe continue that discussion, and there were some issues there that we didn't really get to, which I'm hoping maybe I'm going to say something that draws a bit from my own American experience in organizing that can maybe be a starting point, possibly to continue from before that discussion if people want to, and also as an invitation to others who want to kind of join it. So the starting point for me, where I'm kind of framing this, is this question that's been running through this whole meeting, this question of what is new politics, and related to that, who are we, in the sense of, are we a left? What does it mean to talk about we as the people in this room, we a left, we radicals, we anti-capitalists? And that relates to this problem of organization and agency through what I'm going to call a problem of articulation. Articulation in both senses of that word. So to articulate meaning articulating what we believe is the fundamental problem and crisis of capitalism, and what we believe is the better world that we're fighting for. There's also the less common use of articulate, but which you hear more and more in politics, it seems to me these days. And Foucault earlier used articulate in this sense of joining together, creating a kind of joint between things. And he was talking about it in the sense of the joint between ideas, but you can also talk about how organizations and movements join together without being totally merged together. That can happen between countries, within countries, and between groups even within countries. So to step up from that, I'm going to talk about this a little in the context of the United States. One of the things that came up in terms of the convergence of struggles in earlier discussion was the issue that comes up in many places of parties versus movements, and how you deal with, first of all, building coalitions of movements that can contest for power, that can perhaps use parties as vehicles for achieving change, and then also how to deal with the problem of being co-opted into the state structure and having your ideological and your political grounding sort of compromised. So my organizing, the organizing I do, is in my organization in the United States. It's called the Democratic Socialists of America. Its roots are in the old left socialist tradition of the Socialist Party, also people somewhat from the Communist Party and other traditions, but it itself is not a party. It really is better considered more of a social movement kind of organization. Really, partly that's because the United States doesn't really have parties in the sense that many other countries do, and I don't have time to get into sort of the details of what that means, but basically this idea of like a disciplined party that has a platform and that runs, slates of candidates and gets into office and then holds those members accountable, that doesn't exist really in the United States. So instead we have organizations like mine which adhere to a sort of, a political ideology of what we call democratic democratic socialism, and this party is, or this non-party, this organization is not very large, only about 20,000 members, but that's more than triple what it was about a year or so ago. And that's for a number of factors, but the biggest ones are first the Bernie Sanders primary campaign for president, and then Donald Trump winning and freaking everyone out and making them want to fight. So that puts us in this position of having a huge amount of growth and having a sort of unclear sense of our own politics. We are certainly not an anti-capitalist organization, although I am part of the anti-capitalist tendency within that organization. The highest point of unity would probably be something like Bernie Sanders, who would be considered just a normal social democrat in most places. You know, free healthcare, free education, tax the rich, higher minimum wage, that kind of thing. And so here's where the question of sort of articulation arises, both articulating our politics and articulating ourselves with other groups. You know, one approach we could take, having grown this quickly, is to say, okay, now we just need to keep growing and growing until we're big enough to, you know, run our candidates and win elections. I don't think that works, and I don't think that that takes seriously the contradictions of politics in the United States and anywhere else, which is that we arise from a particular history. And that history marks who we are and what our composition is, both the composition of the people in the organization and the composition of our political ideology. So, due to the history of the United States and the history of the left in the United States is extremely segregated. And our organization is far more white than the population of the United States, even though the non-white population in the United States is far to the left of the political average. So, how do we deal with that? Of course, we try to be anti-racist in our practice, both internally and externally, and to incorporate anti-racism into our politics. But that's not enough, and I think it's not really principled. It's sort of colonial to say, well, everyone should just join us. Rather, the idea, I think, what we have to do is to articulate ourselves into relationship with other people's work. And so, the example I'll use is there's something called the Movement for Black Lives platform that exists in the United States, which was developed by Black Lives Matter and many other organizations, and which lays out a platform that's broadly, very similar to the kind of politics that USA represents, including jobs programs and taxation on the wealthy and those sorts of things, but emphasizing specifically issues such as police violence that are of specific concern to people in the movement for Black Lives. And by engaging with that platform, we can both sort of incorporate that kind of politics into our own work more directly and act in solidarity with the work that they're doing. So that to me leads to sort of a larger conversation that's happening now in the U.S. left about the idea that what we need is not a party, what we need is a platform. That is, getting more groups together that can sort of agree to a minimal list of things that say, we want to support candidates that support these, fundamental policies. We will support people that support them on whatever party line they happen to be running on, otherwise we will not support them. And that makes more sense in terms of articulating movements and building power than thinking in terms of a party, necessarily. And so I'll close with a provocation. I took provocation to mean that I can ask questions I don't know the answer to, so I'm going to indulge that. I want to get up to sort of now the international scale, which is something we didn't get to really when we were discussing these kind of convergences last time. And we already heard about trade unions at the international scale. They have the advantage of having a body to coordinate. But what about other kinds of movements? Now, my organization technically has a coordinating body. However, that body is the Socialist International, which also contains the British Labour Party and the ANC. And in fact, one of my faction's current internal fights in DSA is to get us out of the Socialist International. So the question is, what do we do when we have no kind of accessible institutions the way we might on the state level that we can try to exert power over, right? There are all these unaccountable bodies that exist at the international level. And so it puts us almost in the position of the comrade from Swaziland, who I think left, but who sort of made the point that we're living, it's like not an absolute monarchy at the international level, but it's sort of the monarchy of capital, in that we don't have the same kinds of institutional access. So how do we sort of articulate ourselves into something that can deal with things like the ecological crisis that are necessarily global in scale? Because if we neglect that level, we leave the resolution of the crisis up to these unaccountable bodies, IMF, World Bank, etc. Or even worse, the international order breaks down such that nobody is systematically addressing it. And so, how do we think through that problem? That's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you.
We have a free presentation, and we propose we move in groups, and we have the three presentation have dealt with many important issues. The presenters have proposed us some of the questions that we might discuss in the groups, and I want to bring it to you. What do you suggest? Do we go in three groups on the three presentations, or do we discuss all the presentations in two groups?
I don't know what.
Sorry?
I don't know what other thing it seems. I don't know what you think, Mark. Or I mean, the sort of labor piece of it seems like it has sort of a distinct valence to it. I don't know how. Do you think yours kind of? Do you want to kind of take yours as a separate piece?
So we propose we discuss all the issues that have been raised here.
No, I think that's what they mean. It's a group of labor being
Two groups.
Labor and
Other.
waste per person.
Unless, I mean, Marco, you think it.
No.
Is that okay? So, Marco has been raising issues mainly concerning the organization and agency. How do we organize? What forms of organization do we need in this current period so that we can bring the different forms of struggles and convergence together? And the second presentation was mainly focused on union, social movement, and raises the question of global unions, which is very important. And the third intervention, we have an experience of new politics in the United States, and you raises the question of what kind of international platform, international body, do we need a new international, a new platform, etc. I think these are important questions. And I would suggest that we move into the group for 45 minutes. Is that okay? And the proposal is that we come here at 15 past 6, so that we have 10-15 minute reports, and we stop at 6:30. Is that all right? Okay, not 7 o'clock. Good. So please, the group on union, I propose it to be here, on labor, and the other group outside. Okay. So you won't disrupt yourself. Huh? Okay, that's fine. Good. So 5:45 here. Thank you.
Maybe everybody's going to leave. Can I get a sense of you staying for the union discussion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. Do we want to get the approach stuff in one area over here? We can even change. Stuff on move. Déjà,
gaz en eau, répartir cette je me souviens des meetings c'est que ceux qui c'est un peu vieux, avant d'aller au meeting, tu
Okay, that's fine. But, no, because of your part, it's I only give you, you know, yeah. Specify a time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's be. Don't run on that. Let's
Remember we sent it around again asking for it to be signed. when we ask Daniel to ask, to check that they've signed. Do you want to take this? This is to say, because I well, then you have to get people to sign. Yeah.
But it can't print, you must print it out, it can't.
Clear rural. Dekule labalam. Every beke dacha okotla. Kyoto amlahlekisa. Okay.
Let's go clarification. She called it a cookie.
tend to open up a new entity for various causes. We don't, we find it easier to kickstart certain things, but it's okay for housing or for advocacy campaign for having spaces that are abandoned, given to the municipality, or to swap especially that sense that we tend to make things from scratch, but not that unfamiliar, I guess, with the people here wearing different hats. What I was referring in terms of operation is that the big groups that have a democratic state are enabling people to join the movement, and it's also often an entrance point to other groups that are sometimes more guerrilla-like, and that have operational in terms of being able to act upon much more quickly, and that was my point, is there are different forms of organizing, giving, having traits that are useful for different aspects of and so my intervention was one to add in more experience that could be useful in understanding different experiences and what are their advantages and what are their disadvantages.
think that, here, is saying that, we have the feeling that we have tried all of that, and we have failed, and we need to try again. Some of us have been in the beginning of the working group forum, and it was exactly that. The try to do the kind of common space in which we can come together, share, understand, not having a fifth international or a name of having that, but having the multi-sectorial and multi-sector. So that was the aim, and I think that for some years it was really interesting in terms that we learned a lot together. The question is now failing, and it's failing because the key networks are becoming more fragile. When we started the working forum, we had in Latin America important networks on human rights, on labor, on women, on lots of strong networks, and in Europe as well at that time. So the question is how to move from that already attempt to make that attempt. And many of us were there, and we have important lessons that came out from that experience. So what is that we need to learn, not to repeat again? I think yesterday or today, Pablo was putting that on the table. How not to mistake, at least not to mistake the same mistakes again. To be creative in terms of searching new mistakes. Because I think, and just to talk with Mateo, it's not, you cannot choose between local and global with capitalism at the key. It's a false disconnection. We need to be involved. And you cannot deliver to others. So I will be doing my homework, and please, you that are outside, take care of this. Because capitalism is organizing globally, but the effect is local. So we need to strengthen our organization, but at the same time, if we want to overcome capitalism, we need as much as possible to be together. So I think that maybe the way to start or restart again or to learn again from the past is a little bit what we are trying in the interview like capitalism around and with the people dialogue. That is a more long term, coming from concrete struggles, uniting concrete movements that are there, but that feels and knows that it's not going to be enough to work if you are isolated in your own. So try again that, but maybe this time we need to be more connected to concrete struggles and to concrete demands. Because I think, and I will finish with that, first round here, I think that the common project of something that is overcoming capitalism as a model that allows us to move is not done. So what is our dream, what is our utopia, where is the state? So, and it will need to be coming and reconstructed, built from those struggles in more concrete connections. to create a different kind of interaction. And I want people to connect that because today I think more than anything else, we need a new political international. The mistake of the limitation of the working force, why the fact that we didn't want to create a space. And we want to create a space for us to come together and to reconfigure this. There's been a reconfiguration globally, politically. But now we speak with resources without the political ambition of the fourth international, the third international, the fifth international, and the third international program. So the smash command. The second semester. Okay. So the issue is that now we need to find the United Nations processes, we see the statements of that, international policy, and the European Commission is engaging with the all belong to. But there is a new definition now. Like you see now, I feel the value of the previous conversation that we had in the session before, and the session this morning, obviously the conversation that we should be having globally to find global responses to the different issues. And that basically brings me up with not this complex and we are fearful because we burned ourselves in many, many ways. We sometimes do an international parent and then we make a franchise in South Africa and then we must all act like that to the franchise we must even almost say state because in Russia you state capitalism, in Russia it's not state capitalism, you put everything on there. Another group would say Russia is not a default worker state, whatever. So now we can move on. And I think that's the space you may be kind of, but that I think that's the issue now.
I have questions, I have comments and questions for all of us. Part of my comments are picked up already by national, national global, or struggles of national supporters, focusing on local and national international connections. But then, in terms of questions, we're thinking about various of the types of struggles. And I basically agree that we identify some struggles that are complex issues. And we from that side and politicize so that from these movements form that go around concrete struggles. And the real these types of struggles, because when you mentioned that it's not necessarily to the parliamentary system, the struggle within the labor movement, social movements that you specifically said. So, I mean, how they are these types of struggles. And then, I wonder, how do we respond to the expression of the way you said at the last and to the
know, the dislocation between that and, the importance of taking people how to organize and how to articulate a politics, right? So that's one thing that I think we should speak about it as a list. The other thing is I had the fortune of going to the Congo talk recently in Cape Town. And the title of the talk was Secure the Faith, Decolonize the Mind. And we were talking about securing the base of our activism, but in order to do that and to build a mass movement and secure a base of activism, there has to be a reimagining, firstly about our own black politics and how we think about things, but broadly how we relate to one another. And so that's another, before we can talk about the math, because I don't think we have a math in many of our organizations currently, how do we influence that?
What happened in India, what happened in Israel, what happened in Venezuela. So, the reason why we're going backwards, and I think we are worse than what we were in the year 2001, is because this of all the peace and resilience. Brazil and so on and all of that. Because it would be a very different situation if we would have Greece and Ecuador. Well, yet we have a referendum, we would organize something different. So the problem is that there will be peace. And in a way we are responsible for the peace. I mean, I think the social forum was responsible. The social forum didn't want to criticize what Lula was doing. They didn't want to challenge Lula. So, if you don't challenge Lula, it's very responsible for what happened. So, and I think that we have to learn the lesson. The social forum was good to articulate the problem, but there was one mistake in the presentation. There it is. Nothing wrong to have a deep discussion. In relation taking the government in relation to political parties and so on. So we need to have a process again, but this time we have to discuss that and really discuss it in an open way. And so second, I think that yes, we are back to kind of so yeah, we have to unify the different strategies. We have so many days of action in the year, and it's okay, but we need some victory. I don't think it's possible to think of an international movement without victory. We actually want to do that, and because that's what happened, then we have this, so we have to look at less on how we're going to organize it, or so what is it in the world that we're going to open or try to have in some kind of security. That means state power, yes, the laws are passed. I think that is key. So I believe the process of focusing our energy to do action that has to be victory and parallel to this promote a very deep process of reflection of our mistakes and ways to overcome.
I was thinking that we are living in a time in which And so what we should do and what we are doing, and if we compare that to what we are now doing, then because now we are discussing how we're going to become more creative and more productive when we talk about movement. We want people to take on the responsibility of taking care of themselves and the market, to create enough different meaning of solidarity. And this is a good thing, but we are in the beginning. And this is the difference of this sport. And we can go back in history, we can go back decades of the 19th century, in that life in Europe, but there, in the last decades of the 19th century, communism took place. And there was a toxic political environment, and society was no right, and if you strike, you go on the side, you get free or disappear. But somehow, the working class self-organized, and they created new paradigms, the seeds of what we call the social welfare state after 50 years, after the Second World War, the social invention that was the social welfare state was based on took place in the working class neighborhood back in the years of the 19th century. And what they were trying to do was to survive, and they controlled the time by doing that, by inventing new ways of organizing activities in order to satisfy the needs and survive. They become powerful. They had, in the end of the 19th century, powerful political parties, religions, and they were able to be present in what was happening in Europe. They were present in give us the chance to become very independent and able to influence the world outside. So this is the change that we are living in. We are in the initial stage of what we are trying to do. So we can be more confident to experiment and try new things. The commons is one of these, is only common, but other ideas and also methods around. Be confident that we things are seem to be very fast and the whole things are not very good for us. They like to more advanced than us. We should be confident that prolific intelligence is producing every day. Activities, networks, innovations, and the international networking gives us the opportunity to learn from each other and fail. If we are bold enough and we are in a constant way, we have results. We have results in what I heard from in Barcelona, from what I think in other people in India, in the totally different context, gives me, makes me not even know things that seem to be right.
Okay, I'm going to be short. Maybe I will remain kind of after right over that, but in a way to be live in UK. One of one of the ways in which I think this industry becomes much more fluid and flexible. And has to be kind of like a moving target. What are things that we